Oh, and
Oh,
it tells you. Oh, ho,
yeah.
ho.
Ooh. Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone.
Technology
Yeah,
created to fail us. No.
I know. Right, we got to get a nice, proper warning that it's being recorded. We don't want to be caught off guard. So, but hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Liam from Liam's Lyceum, of course, aka Himvar, and today I'm with a special guest. He's on this side of my thing, Ed Greenwood. He is the author of all these books around us. He's also the author of all these books that I have behind me. It's quite a large stack. But he's most famously probably known as the creator of the Forgotten Realms. So yeah, I just got to ring at the doorbell, but
Yes, of
that's okay.
course.
No.
If you need to go answer.
I will go answer one second. That's a funny interruption. All right.
This always happens. Life interrupts. I have the same sort of thing happen my end. I live in the country, and we're doing this on a weekend, and what that means is neighbors all take turns cutting their lawns with tractors, and they run over trees, and there are huge explosions and stuff. So, we're used to this. It's okay.
Now we're back. That was the neighbor wanting to play with my daughters who are actually out of town this weekend. So poor neighbor, but they'll be here back soon. So, anyways, yes, Ed Greenwood. Hi,
It's
Ed.
okay. Hey, she can come in and play if you want. I'm easy. We play games here.
Yeah, right. No, I think she likes my daughters a lot more than she likes me, but um, understandably so.
It is what it is. The interpersonal relations, if they were all the same, where would the fun be in the world?
Exactly. Right. Well, I don't. It wouldn't be anywhere. No.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, being alone. If it's just a relationship of not a relationship, that's not a relationship. Anyways, so if it's just one person.
And you can get lines of novels out of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a secret? No.
No. Those are written the other way. Hey, Ed, do you like this cover? Yep, good. We need a book to go inside it, and we need that book in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
That's how you write those.
Well, yes. Okay. That's another way to do it, I suppose. That's not a way it seems like it happens a lot these days. But that
Yeah,
definitely is
yeah.
a thing.
Well, here's the thing. I've written like 450, 460, whatever books. And when
Mhm.
you've done that many, you end up doing it every possible way under the sun. Because some of them are neatly planned. Some of them you write just for fun and putter away on for years and then show it to the world when it's ready.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are assignments, like I just said, gave you for the thing. So you try every way. And when you've done that many books, you deliberately try every way because, hey, let's try this way. Let's try that way. Let's try the other way. I know that way isn't going to work, but let's do it again just for fun.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it because you have, I mean, you just gave a huge number out there. It sounds like you're Asimov over here. But I mean, a lot of these are like they're game supplements and they're also like novels. And I mean, you don't just do or you haven't just done Forgotten Realms stuff, for sure. I mean, I have a couple things here that are not Forgotten Realms. Like I don't know, you put a story in this one. This is I don't even know how to say it, Altaltis or something like that.
It tells
And
us,
then
yeah.
this is your Kingless Land stuff, or well, the Band of Four, I guess that's called.
Yep.
And then um, I don't even know. I can't remember. You contributed this creatures from fairy tale and myth, and then I have like the Storm Talons thing, this Beowulf thing that you put a short story in. And then I have one of the I don't even know. Yeah, it's in the camera. Okay, the stack is really tall. So, but the what was it? Niflheim? Is that I don't know.
Niflheim, yeah.
Niflheim.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I don't even actually have any of your game supplements out, because I have those too, but they don't fit right here. So,
Hence all the shelves behind me.
right. Yes. Which I hear your house is full of books.
Yes. I have 2 shipping containers in the yard full of boxes full of stuff that won't fit in the house. There's about 300,000 items in the house, not counting comic books. That's
Oh.
probably another 100,000 of those. Um, yeah, yeah. I have a serious problem. I live for the good things in life. Let's surround yourself with dead trees with cool stuff printed on them.
Yes, right, exactly. It's better than just a bunch of whole, a lot of dead cows, right? Dead trees, so,
Yeah,
um,
dead cows smell. Unless you
uh,
then you eat unless you cook them and eat them, and then you produce the smells. But yeah, well,
yes, this is true. That is an insane number of books to have around and stuff. I fancy myself a little bit of a collector. I mean, way younger than you. If it wasn't obvious, and probably not in spirit, to be honest, though. But
I'm never gonna grow up. No, 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 no.
yeah, I can see that. No, I know, and that's fine, right? That's good. That's how it should be. And so, but I fancy myself a collector somewhat, and I definitely don't even have anywhere near that. It's not really possible for me right now. I live in an apartment, and when I settle down somewhere more permanent, I have like a career going or something, the books will probably be a little ridiculous at that point. My wife already thinks they're ridiculous. Like the few bookcases I have are all like double or triple faced, and so because I need to put my
Mm,
book somewhere. So
well, if you buy the apartment building,
okay,
there's always a boiler room, and the boiler room is always double height, and it's in the basement.
yes.
So you partition off your own little thing with permanent ladders and staircases up the center of it, and put books both sides, and then you can retreat there. And then when your wife needs you to do something, she can't find you.
That's the real dream right there. I mean, I like it when my wife can find me, to be honest. But I mean, like,
Well, no,
I,
no, no. Then you install a telephone and you say, "Yes, dear, I'll
yes.
be right up the moment I'm finished counting all the rents from our apartment building." That
Yes.
now means we have another $3 million. So actually, sorry, I lied. We have $2 million because the other million's earmarked for the books I have to buy this month.
All right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's where it's always interesting, right? Like becoming an adult, and you're just like, what do I spend my money on? I mean, assuming you have any money, right? And I mean, in the countries, over in the Western world, we do have some money, thankfully, right, to spend on stuff, and books. What else?
Books, they're quiet. They don't start wars usually.
Yeah. Well, normally.
They don't make demands on their neighbors unless they fall through the floor on top of their heads,
Yeah.
which is why you have to buy that apartment building, not keep cramming books into an apartment that is presumably up in the
Uh-huh.
apartment building.
You need to support the weight of the books above with books below as your like supports,
Yes,
So
it's turtles all the way down. No,
okay.
you can see
So,
you can see how I can waste hours.
no, yeah, no. Is it a waste though? I don't know.
Well, yeah, okay, there's that.
So I did have a question, or I have a couple questions. I mostly want to ramble, whatever, talk, whatever. But one I had actually was I'm reading this. I just put it back at the top. I was just reading it when you came in here. I have not read most of these actually. I wanted to feel like I don't feel comfortable talking to an author or whatever unless I've read at least a handful, of stuff. And I have, I've read, I don't know, about 7 maybe of your novels, which even though I have a lot here that I haven't read, right? So, but I am currently going through Best of the Realms 2, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I just finished the one about Storm's Garden. I don't
Oh
remember.
yes,
So, yeah, so
wasn't that
really,
fun?
yeah, it was great fun. And that's actually one of the reason. I mean, if I can just honestly say, I read a lot, right? And so you're one of my favorite authors, just partially because of the Forgotten Realms creation, but also just as the actual fiction you're writing. You know what I mean? Like in novel format or short story format. I think short stories are a little undersold these days. And the story before that one was One Comes Unheralded to Zerta, which I don't know, I just think it was pretty interesting. I actually made a video on it. It's on my channel already, and it's because it's just so interesting to me that you wrote it. Well, one, when you were super young, but it's also supposedly the first Forgotten Realms story, right? And at least written down, I'd imagine. And I was like kind of talking about it because this would have been before Dungeons and Dragons actually came out, and I talk a lot about sword and sorcery also on my channel, and I was just kind of comparing it to like the later D&D fiction, and then talking about sword and sorcery because it seemed to have a little. I was a little different than what you. I would say when I think of Ed Greenwood, what you write, you know what I mean? Like this is definitely a little different than that, and that makes sense, right? But it's just like I remember reading once in Realms of Valor, the afterword by Jeff Grubb, and he said you were inspired by like authors like Lord Dunsany and Fritz Leiber. I haven't read a lot of Dunsany, but Leiber's become a favorite of mine over like the past year. Um, and I can kind of see Leiber and like, especially as something like Shadow of the Avatar, which is just a fun romp, like basically. I mean,
Hmm.
it's very Liberian, I would say. You know, like and I don't know, just tell me about that. I'm just kind of rambling, but
Sure. No, no, no. Okay. I grew up reading everything in my
Mhm.
father's den, everything. And my father, like most people who collected too many books, he crammed books in by building bookshelves to put the maximum number of books in a room.
Nice.
So he was shelving them by size, height, height of the books,
Okay.
so he could cram them in. So therefore, I was reading stuff that had nothing to do with the book beside it. And I was trying to discover everything. So I was reading everything. So I got to read a lot of stuff. And Lord Dunsany was one of them. Um, Fritz Leiber was another. And I would read my father's pulps. There was a magazine called Fantastic by
Okay.
then that he was buying as it came out. And it occasionally, in the twilight of Fritz Leiber's life, containing new Conan stories written by DeCamp and Carter, and new Fafhrd and the Mouser stories, um, written by Fritz Leiber, and I read them and enjoyed them, and I love the idea of the story that's a standalone tale, but it's also an episode in the lives of people, characters who become old friends. And the world is this
Mhm.
backdrop shared from story to story. So you find out a tiny bit more about it in each story without the narrator ever stopping, other than in Leiber's case, it was usually a paragraph near the beginning to say, now in the city of Ool, the Thieves Guild, that sort of stuff, because he needed that to set up that story. But other than that, he was never stopping to tell you about the world, but you were absorbing little bits of it with every
Mhm.
with every tale, and I love that. Um, One Comes Unheralded Deserta was the first finished realm story that sort of crystallized the world as the realms. I had actually written little segments that weren't finished earlier, and I went back to them later that starred Mert the Moneylender. And that
Mhm.
was Mert was a cross between Sir John Falstaff from Shakespeare, um, Glencannon from Guy Gilpatrick's Glencannon short stories, and um, Nicholas Van Ryn from Poul Anderson's Pulso Technically science fiction stories.
Uh-huh.
The the gruff swindler of a trader, and as a merchant trader, he was um, getting into trouble in every story. So they were episodes he would leave town at the end of each story, hotly pursued by the local authorities, his trade rivals, and the new enemies he'd made during the story, which is how I explored the Forgotten Realms. He was hopscotching, although I didn't know it at the time, down the Sword Coast,
Mhm.
and they became my first run of stories. But yeah, One Comes Unheralded Deserta, although it's a very static story with too many characters in it, from the point of view of an author, that I didn't give two hoots in those days. I was writing for myself, and what I wanted
Mhm.
to do was nail down a lot of these major characters. So it's like one of those glorious sitcom TV episodes that's the end of the series, or the season finale, where you drag in everybody to do their little shtick, and the audience will applaud because it's their favorite character coming on for his 3 lines. Well, I was doing that in that story.
Mhm.
Not so much to show off, but to nail down what those characters were for me and get them all together in the same story, so I could mentally compare and contrast when every time I reread the story. I could the characters are actually bouncing off each other in the same room, so I could, oh, that's how they'd interact. Good, got it. So yeah, that I and that's the key to the writing. For good or for ill, most of my writing has been to entertain me first and foremost. I'm a little kid. I'm writing stuff because that's how I started to write. I would run upstairs excitedly from my father's den and usually interrupt my father and embarrass him because he had NATO generals or top secret radar physicists or something meeting in the house, and I'd wave some lurid wartime paperback. Um, Owl Hoot Trail, she was staked out nude in the sun to die, or whatever. I'd wave this book at him and I'd say, Dad, this one was great. Where's the next one? And my father, God bless him, would say things like, "Oh, well, son, if you want a sequel to that, you're going to have to write it yourself. That author died in 1932." And I go,
Oh.
"Okay," and run back downstairs and start writing a sequel. And so I was learning how to write by copying the style of authors, for good and for bad, because some of them were wretchedly bad, but I didn't care. It was just like trying different techniques. It's like
Mhm.
if you're learning to play an instrument, you don't necessarily play music that rocks your socks. You'll have to go through all these composers. Now a little Chopin, now a little Mozart, now a little, because you're learning from everybody.
Mhm.
Same thing, if you're a painter, and you get dragged through art class in public school and then high school and then university, and you do a knockoff Mondrian and you do a knockoff Impressionist, and because you're learning the techniques. It's not that they're teaching you to copy, it's that they're
Mhm.
teaching you, okay, here's what worked for somebody else or didn't work for somebody else. Try it and you'll learn from the attempt. And yeah, that's what I was doing. So I can pastiche all sorts of writers, and in fact, there's a lot more books I've written that you don't have in that stack because they don't have my name on them. One of the things I've done is book rescues,
Mm.
fix books for well, for people who are writing their first romance novel and get halfway through and don't know what to do. I mean, aside from the sex, but I mean,
Right.
they want the book to go another 200 pages, and
Uh-huh.
they, well, there's this thing called plot.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that sort of thing, or even worse, mystery writers. And you'll see the example of this on television, because they just don't have enough time in an episode to
Mhm.
tell an engaging mystery story. If they're going to creep you out at the beginning and have the discovery and the dead body and how come its head is missing and that sort of stuff, then you run out of time at the end and everything has to happen in a whirlwind
Mhm.
to get it to fit in before the top of the hour when it's over. Well, a lot of writers end up with that problem, not for time reasons, but because they just don't know how to bring the thing to a satisfactory end. And so, neither do I. No, but they would call me in because I'm well, it's like all those home improvement shows where they bring in somebody like Mike Holmes or Brian Bomber or whoever,
Uh-huh.
some homeowner who is absolutely clueless and has never used a chop saw before, and you're thinking, after you watch them at it, you think, oh, that's good. That's probably why they still have all their fingers. And then the expert just guides them gently through. Now we're going to cut this off, and we always want to start here. You always want to install your top cabinets first, so you don't have to reach over the bottom cabinets to put the top cabinets. Oh, and they lead them through it. Well, the same way I would come in and I'd lead something through. And in the case of authors who unfortunately were no longer with us because they died in the middle, leaving the book stalled on page 136, and the publisher would really like to publish the book but
Yeah.
not have it end in mid word on page 136, and Eddie would come in and finish it, copying their style. So hopefully you couldn't tell where they ended and I stopped.
Hmm.
That isn't always the case, but
Yeah.
I usually fix that by sanding and making them.
Uh-huh.
In other words, I'd go back a little bit and I'd start doing a light rewrite of their last few chapters so you wouldn't see a break.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it wouldn't be so obvious that way. Okay, that's really cool. Actually, you can just go ahead and DM me the list of books you helped out with that. You can. Wait, I don't know if you're allowed to do that,
That's
but
right. That's
yeah. So.
exactly it. If you're finishing books for an author, there's almost always an NDA
Yeah, yeah.
in place, either because there will be people who said, "Look, I paid for Norman Mailer, and you
Hmm.
got some schmo to finish this book, so I'm not getting Norman
Yeah,
Mailer. I want my money back." Or there's the vanity of the person who couldn't finish the book
yeah.
and doesn't want the
That's
world to know. And then they
so
can
sad.
say, and well, yeah, but you see, I always thought that's terrible because for years later, they'll be signing books at a bookstore and someone will bring up a book that they didn't finish and say, "I loved the ending." And they'll go, "Good, good. I'm glad you loved it." And you think, I don't remember the ending because I didn't write it. Yeah, but you're not gonna say, So, but yeah, but usually I can't tell you the other books. But the point is, for me, I had fun, and I got to try other styles, and I got to write something I would never write.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, um, the Harlequin romance is not my wheelhouse. It's not where I'm going to go for entertainment, particularly if I'm not allowed to do anything in depth. So like, this book is about woodworking, or this book is about horse racing, or this
Hmm.
book is about car racing. So I can't delve into that and share it with the reader. And particularly if this is a tame Harlequin, not a torrid, sexy, heavy sex scenes Harlequin. So I can't put them in. So you see, I end up writing something. God, I would never have written this on my own, but it's still good practice to
Yeah.
go there and try it. So yeah, and yeah. On the other hand, there will probably be times when people don't want to know. Like if they're
Hmm.
holding this beautiful book with this lady who almost forgot to put her clothes
Oh,
on,
yeah.
and she's clutching some Highland laird who forgot to put his shirt on,
Of
um,
course.
and has a 6-pack or 24-pack, a
Yeah.
2-4, where most of us just have like I have an author belly, and they probably don't want to know when they read that pulse pounding ending where she melted into him, blah 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 blah. That this guy with a beard and hair out to here is going ha 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 at the keyboard and writing it. They probably don't want to know that. They probably want to have their own fantasies.
Yes, right. No, in that case, I think I do remember watching. This makes me think of three things. Sorry,
Go
but
right ahead.
yeah, I think I remember watching. You were talking with. I think it was a Realms thing, but with Aaron Evans and I think it was Eric to be.
Hmm.
And you mentioned you had wrote a Harlequin romance, and you wouldn't tell him obviously, but which
Yep.
one?
Oh yeah.
So, which I thought was really interesting. I also thought of H.P. Lovecraft helped out a lot of younger writers for trying to do cosmic horror and stuff like that too. Um, then he didn't have his name on it, but I think later on they were able to go back like based off letters
Yeah.
and
Yeah. The
like
man wrote
correspondence.
incredible.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then of course there's Brandon Sanderson finished Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, and that's got Brandon Sanderson's name on it. In fact, that's made him a lot more popular because he finished it. And so I think that one's kind of like part of like a I don't want to say like that's like a different part of maybe like publishing, like because how do I it's almost like stuff like Harlequin romances and even like to an extent Forgotten Realms since there's what almost 300 novels like are almost pulps, as opposed to
Hmm.
glosses of Wheel of Time or something, which I prefer Forgotten Realms Wheel of Time. But and so nothing like there's no derogatoriness there,
Mm.
with saying anything's a pulp. But it almost feels like that. It's like here's a world. And in the case of Forgotten Realms, also a shared world, right? So it's it's a lot of things, right? But so, and it's also a campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, you know. So I
Yeah,
don't know. That's just what it makes me think of. So
yeah, you get to have fun in the world, and if you're smart and you get to write a Forgotten Realms novel, and I realize that almost nobody gets to write them these days, but back in the day when you got to write Forgotten Realms novels, if you were smart, you pick up the phone or wrote a letter and later on wrote an email and asked Ed, "Hey, I have to do something in a place called blah, 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 blah. Ask Katla. What do you have on Ask Katla? What is Ask Katla? Describe it, you know." So if you're smart, you checked with the whoever it was who'd recently done something on something,
mhm,
even if you had the book in your hands. Like for instance, say you had the Lands of Intrigue box set, and there's two booklets that Stephen Shand helmed about the various countries, and Athkatla is in prominent in one of them. If you got the chance, you'd still ask Stephen, okay, what did you have to leave out?
mhm,
What really juicy things would you like me to know about Athkatla that would you'd like to come through in the novel? Now, my novel isn't going to be about Athkatla. It's going to visit about 5 different places, and it's going to be about something completely different. But what would you like Athkatla to shine through for the reader? That's a smart way of playing in a shared world,
mhm.
because then the person feeds you all the stuff they couldn't use and all their enthusiasms, and you just write it down, and then when you publish it, a few people will say, "Oh, this person obviously didn't know anything about Athkatla," but most people, including the people on, in house who already were the Athkatla experts, go, "Good, good, he got Athkatla right," you know, and that's how you feel like you're part of the crew. You
Mhm.
came into the house, you had a good time with everybody else, and you didn't smash too much of the furniture.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. That's it's interesting. I mean, let me just lament real quick the number of Forgotten Realms novels we get right now. I cry about it all the time. But so I mean, like I'm on a quest to read all the Forgotten Realms novels. I'm not even close. There's a lot. Maybe I should be grateful that we're getting like one a year from Bob or whatever. So it's just like so I can actually catch up, right? But I
Hmm.
mean, but anyways, so I've written. I don't write a lot, okay, but I have written like Forgotten Realms. I guess what you call fan fiction because there's no chance it's going to get published anywhere, and it's basically fan fiction, right? Whatever. And so that's the thing about shared worlds, right? You get to, in some cases, you get to write fan fiction and get you can have it published, right? Which is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So um, but I always thought it was fun writing in it, and I ask you questions all the time on Twitter, and like, what about where's this? Reading Making the Mage, like, where is this town? Like this village or whatever, like.
Hmm.
Just stuff like that, or like, what does this word mean? I think I asked you one time what abritorial meant or something. And so, which I actually read later, it kind of tells you in the gray box from '87. So, but I didn't have it at the time. And so,
That's
so
okay.
it's
That's the one my one pet peeve or regret about Twitter is that um I keep thinking to myself, read the bloody book. Why are you asking me? And then I realize people have come to the hobby after I did. I was there
Mhm.
before there was a hobby, you know, and so they haven't bought and read all the Forgotten Realms products from the beginning. So I'm being unfair to them by expecting them to know that this thing or that thing, you know. But yeah,
Mhm.
immediately I always go, you know, you could read the book instead of wasting my time asking me this. That's what I think to myself inside, but I never write that because I then have to think, no, wait a minute, this person, this they might have just discovered the realms. It's
Mhm.
not fair to me to go crotchety, and I had to go uphill both ways to get to school. What about you, meh? You know, and how would they feel if they're not going to feel good? I wouldn't feel good if I got treated like that. So
Mhm.
I patiently go, well, if you look on page whatever,
Hmm.
but yeah, the, the the whole point of the realms is it's too big for everybody to hold all of it in their head at the gaming table as well as when designing and reading about it and so on. And that's a
Hmm.
good thing. That means the world can still surprise you. Even if you brought all your stuff, that stack of stuff behind you, even if you bring it to your gaming table and you go, wait a minute, flip, 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 um, the world is still surprising you
Hmm.
as an immersive experience around you. And that's good. That's the way it should be. And it's
Hmm.
endlessly complicated and contradictory, just like our real world.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's why I was like, I need to read all of these because like I had read I had
You do. Ah, click, click, click. You do.
yes, yep. I need to read all of them. And I have about half of them, about at least the novels. And I like to incorporate that stuff into like my D&D games. I actually get to play D&D a lot less than I have time to read, or the chance to read, I guess. And so I read a lot more. But it's always nice being able to learn something new. What I mean? Every time, like, and I think it's funny that you say like I just finished like Crucible and uh the fifth Avatar book, right? And the main character in that, always calls Mr. a harlot. And it's just like Mr. would never call herself a harlot, and most people probably wouldn't, or like I
Yeah,
hear some
Mister would
complaints.
probably say, Harlot? When do I get paid?
But the Shadow of the Avatar series, I've heard some people who don't really like the books actually, and that's fine. That's whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're like, well, it doesn't exactly match up with the Avatar books. I was like, okay, cool, but you look past that. It's actually really fun. And and it's pretty close, anyways. So and so it's just like,
Yes. Well, yeah. There are always problems, and there are the problems are magnified when people are writing and other people don't get to see the manuscripts.
mm-hmm,
So the left hand literally doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And in the case of the Shadows of the Avatar, it was like, uh-oh, that's being said wrong. Okay, that person got that completely wrong and it's in print. I have to explain that away now. Bingo, Shadows of the Avatar. So of course they don't match because it's me retro fixing, retconning as we
mm-hmm,
go. Um, and yeah, that happened more than one time. That's the problem with too many cooks. But it's also
mm-hmm,
the delight of too many cooks because if it's just me, I'm the bottleneck. So
mm-hmm,
just as everybody's waiting for the next um, Game of Thrones series book, or
mm-hmm.
they're waiting for Pat Rothfuss, or they're waiting for
Keep on waiting.
Scott Lynch or whoever, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm,
and the other thing is, uh, my world can never surprise me, and it's all only one voice, so it won't surprise much of anybody else either, because there's my wheelhouse, there's what I write, and
mm-hmm.
unless I'm allowed to be a chameleon by the publisher, and usually the publisher will say, no, 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 we want more of the same. We don't want you to. And the Dance in Storm's Garden short story you alluded to is a perfect example of me having fun and changing
Mm-hmm.
style. But
Mm-hmm.
I got away with that with short story because I was writing it for me. And it was then
Right.
later being put into a book. But it
Mm-hmm.
would be different if I had an in-house editor saying, no, 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 oh, Ed, you write all these books like you're Robert E. Howard over here, and now you're writing this one like you're Barbara Cartland over here. Our public is not going to be pleased. They didn't sign up for Heart's Flowers, and teasing romantic scenes with unicorns. They want blood and guts and sweating thews and wizards gutted by
The thews.
barbarians. And that's the problem. But when you have 40 or 50 different writers, then you have 40 or 50 different voices, and the editors expect that, and therefore it's allowed through, and therefore the reader gets all of this lovely smorgasbord. It's like going to the supermarket and you can buy any food tonight instead of going to the pickle store and you can buy pickles. Or if you don't want pickles, you can have pickles. And if that bores you, Well, go over there. There's the pickle ice cream. It's gonna be pickles, and and you want the variety. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No, I agree. Yeah, you do. I like it. I mean, I love it. Honestly, I mean, if I were to say like over the past couple years, like now, if someone asks me, "What's your favorite fantasy setting?" I'm like, Forgotten Realms. Just read something. I got like 20 recommendations you could start with or something, I mean, because I can, you know what I mean? Like, depends on what you want, depends on what you like,
Yeah.
and like there's so much variety. And I had started at my first Forgotten Realms novel was actually Brimstone Angels, which
Good book.
was, yeah,
Very
great
good
book.
book.
And
Erin can write rings around a lot of us. So, and she has a new non-realms, Empire of Exiles, I think, coming out later this year.
oh, does she?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Ooh. Ooh. I saw
So,
she had the first story in this Altaltus stuff too.
yes,
So
yeah.
I just got that one recently, so I haven't actually read the stories in there yet. But yeah, so I started with that one, and just because it sounded cool, I'm a twin, so I was kind of a sucker for that idea too. And so I started with that, and then I read the only other Aaron Evans book at the time, which was the Godcatcher, and I guess that is still, those are the only ones. Is the six Brimstone Angels, and then the Godcatcher, and then I was big into Neverwinter, and then
Hmm.
so I read Cold Steel and Secrets, which was split into 4 parts, but it's by Rosemary Jones. It's a novella.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
I tried to read Gauntlet Grim, but I was like, wait a second, I should stop, or way back here. And then I read The City of the Dead as well.
Hmm.
So which is great. And then it
Yeah.
was from there I read the Dark Elf trilogy, and then I started reading um, what's it called? Lost Empires stuff. I think I was in the middle of Lost Library of Coromanther, and I was like, you know what? I want to read all of these, like not just this series, but all the Forgotten Realms books. And I read a couple other ones. Like I had read Spellstorm.
Hmm.
My first Elminster novel was The Herald, which was a mistake. But like,
Oh, yeah.
so it's like the only one. Or well, they had Spellstorm actually at Barnes and Noble too. You know what I mean? But like, they don't have The Making of the Mage at Barnes and Noble. And at the time, that's where I was getting my books, right? And now most days are out of print. So it's just like, well, they're digitally available, which is nice. But and so it's just like, so I was like, I need to read all these. And so then I went through the Lost Empires, I went through Symbia, and then started Elminster. Actually, I loved The Making of a Mage. Like like I already liked Elminster as a character from like the D&D like supplement stuff. And then I was like, wow, The Making of a Mage, that was great. So and then just gone from there basically. I've read about 70 Forgotten Realms novels at this point. I mean, that's very minimal compared to, well, probably you, but probably a
I've
lot
read
of
them
other people
all.
too. So yeah. So,
Yeah, because most of them were handed to me
mm-hmm,
in manuscript form to eyeball through for lore.
okay,
You
that
know,
makes
um,
sense.
in the old days, it was a huge fat FedEx box full of all the type. If
Uh-huh.
if Bob Salvatore types up the crystal shard and sends it to them, I get a photocopy
Mm,
be- because they'd invented photocopiers by then.
nice.
Yeah, of exactly what he typed and sent in. So all 535 pages or whatever it is, with the
Mm-hmm.
margins and everything, I'm reading exactly what he gave into the editors. But yeah, later it would be like, here you go, here's the PDF. We need the comments by 3 o'clock this afternoon,
Oh.
and it would be, you guys do know I have a full-time job, and I'm at it right now. You planned this, you
Yeah.
bastards. You know.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 They see that book there, Elminster: The Making of a Mage, in the upper corner. That book was
Mhm.
written in 16 days.
I heard that,
Yeah.
and
So
that's crazy to me because that's such a good book. I love that book. So I've read
well,
other good books that are written in a short amount of time, but
yeah,
it's
but I mean,
not easy.
um, no,
I
it
can
wasn't
imagine.
easy. And the other thing is, I wanted to stay in Hastaro and do the
Mhm.
Thief Tales, the
Mhm.
Fritz Leiber bit of the book.
Ooh.
I wanted to do that, Elminster and Farrell having fun
Mhm.
in Hastaro, um, robbing people all over the place. And I wrote it, and then my editor, who was also head of the book department, said, Yeah, it's great, Ed. But you know how I said Elminster had to be all 4 character classes? So we're gonna chop off all of this. Can you cut it down to just this long? I said, no, I can't. And he says, yes, you can. And if you don't, I will. So it's like, oh, okay, now I can. I didn't need my left leg. I didn't need my right leg. As long as I got my arms, I can haul myself around on a cart. And then he says, no, you can haul yourself around on a cart with one arm. And I said, but. And he says, if you don't lose one arm, you're going to have to start losing organs. How long do you think you could live without organs? Oh, okay. So it's like that, is it? Yes, you must cut it shorter. You must cut it shorter. And even then, if you look at the book from a structural eye, the amount of time that Elminster spends as the cleric of Mistra is tiny compared to the other moments and the other careers in the book. Anyway,
yeah, which that was a big plot twist I wasn't expecting, by the way, though, that part of the book, I think they titled it Priest in the book. I was like,
yes.
Okay, priest.
Well, that was my writing brief from Brian Thompson. I need Elminster to be all 4 of the basic D&D character classes throughout the book. And I said, okay. And what I added to it, okay, and there's going to be a gender swap too. And he said, what? And I said, if you're going to make me jump through those 4 hoops, I'm going to do this. And he said, I think that's brilliant. I just wasn't expecting you to go there. And I said, hey, we don't write enough stuff that young female readers can identify with. And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, let's fix that. Well, you see, because he was reacting with what our target demographic is, and I was saying, yes, but should it be? And that was a conversation he wouldn't normally have with an author. I mean, because I was sort of embedded at TSR, I wasn't on staff, but because I'd created realms and they were talking to me weekly, I had a lot larger influence than any other non-staffer. But that otherwise, they wouldn't normally have had that conversation with an author of a book. It would be an in-house editorial conversation. They'd be, talking about their target demographic for the novel. They would mention that to the author when they wanted to chop something out of a book. No, we can't have that in the book. That our target demographic won't like that, or their parents won't. Oh, okay. But other than that, you would normally not talk about that. Now, whether or not that's a good thing is a whole other argument. I think you should always talk about that, because I think if the editor, the publishing house, and the writer all know what they're heading towards, they might not get there, but there'll be a lot less hurt feelings and misunderstandings and arguments and maybe last minute censorships than otherwise. So, and of course, I think we could have molded what we were publishing for D&D and brought in the segments of the audience that didn't feel like they were represented or welcome a lot earlier.
Yeah. I always thought, I've heard people, and I think there's probably some fiction like this in the past recent years, of just like normal everyday stuff. And I was like, I'd love a mundane thing in the Forgotten Realms. That sounds fun. But it's just, I don't know. So, but
yep.
But I'm glad I'm glad he's like, okay. So I'm glad it's in there. I've actually read at least the ones you put online. They're on. You put them on Wizards, right? The website, the chapters from Thief that got cut.
Yes, yeah, the cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah, they're archived, and I've read them actually, and so I enjoyed that a lot. I think that last one is the one that had like a little alternate ending for 2 of those characters, or a couple of those characters. And so yeah, but great stuff. I really, actually, that one made me cry. But and so it's just like, but I'm a big fan. If you couldn't
I
tell,
must use this power only for good. So, I like it. Oh, nice, very nice. I like it.
But no need. I'm trying not to like just be a big fanboy over here.
Hey, do you have matching underwear for that shirt? No,
I don't know. So, but it's fun to like be able to like find things about like the realms and like try to figure out, not even trying to figure it all out sometimes, like because when I like saw that you had one comes on Herald of Deserta and I was like, this is the first Forgotten Realms story, why didn't no one tell me this? You know what I mean? Like if you go to the Forgotten Realms wiki, and they have a list of short stories, and they even include the ones in all the anthologies and stuff like that. It doesn't have a note saying first Forgotten Realms story. I was like, well, there should be a note right there, because
Well,
why isn't it there?
well, you see, the Wikipedia is put together by fans.
Yes,
And
yeah.
in my case, I happen to work in public libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a recent dust up with Wikipedia because some of my coworkers who work at libraries, and citations are what they do all day
Mm-hmm.
long for everybody's books, they tried to edit the Wikipedia, and Wikipedia stepped in and said, you can't do that. You have to be a Wikipedia editor. This is obviously the author editing his own stuff. And I said, no, it's not. I didn't even know they were doing it. It's my coworkers at the same library. Oh, they're coming for the same IP address. Well, duh. The library is an IP address. But it's like, well, you can't edit your own stuff. And it was like, what the hell? And it was just a case of people who were trimming stuff out of the entry because it wasn't in another Wikipedia article.
Hmm.
Even though it was sourced and referenced out in the real world with third-party sources. Oh, no. If some other idiot hadn't written it in another Wikipedia article, I'm taking it out of this one. It's like, what? Makes no sense at all. But you can't, the short thing is, you can't edit or correct your own Wikipedia. And as you noticed,
Interesting.
there's almost no game stuff in that
Yeah,
Wikipedia
yeah,
entry
yeah.
at all. And you're right, little notes of stuff that might be important to somebody who's just trying to read their way through, or a scholar, like
Mm-hmm.
that's the first Forgotten Realms story right there. Those
Uh-huh.
little notes don't appear there, so it's like, but yeah, I always found it sort of cynically amusing that the editing wars that would go on my Wikipedia entry of people taking stuff out. You didn't work on that, really? You might
Really?
want to look at my name on the front of the box, or the by Ed Greenwood and 40 other people on the booklet and the copyright page of the booklet. Well, none of that stuff matters. It's not in the Wikipedia article. But you
Oof.
can't edit your own Wikipedia thing. So, yeah, there are going to be some things missing.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I guess that happens. Sad. But um, I had a thought and it just totally went out the window.
Oh no!
No.
I had a thought, but Ed was talking. That happens all the time.
No. I have my phone here. I can make notes to keep my thoughts. I guess I should do that. So,
No,
but
no, no. If you keep your thoughts in a tiny little box, they won't be free. Let them out into the
oh
world.
no.
If they come back,
But
they were yours.
okay, there they
Oh,
go.
yeah.
It's like a Pandora thing going on
Well,
here.
I was thinking if I kept blathering long enough, in self-defense, your brain would go, "Wait, I found the thought again."
Well, gotta find the thoughts. No,
Yeah.
I had a. It's not the thought I had, but it's a thought. I going back, kind of like this is less of an inconsistency in the realms, but I mean maybe it's an inconsistency. I think it's one series I haven't read yet. I think it's by Philip Athens, and it's takes place in Innerglith, whatever however you say
Hmm.
that. On
Hmm.
a and is that the Lake of Steam? Am I remembering correctly?
It leads to it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, it's
What
like
he's trying to do
over
is
there.
build a canal. Though it's
Oh,
the
okay.
the
Oh yes,
Watercourse
okay, yeah,
trilogy, and he's trying to
yeah, yeah,
connect
yeah.
the inner sea with the. Yeah, he's doing
Okay,
Ayn Rand in the realms.
okay. See, I haven't actually read the books. It's actually one of the sets I don't have yet, actually. But I read a short story once. Wait, I remember looking at an art something that was talking about. Oh, I just remember my thought. I'll try to remember it for a second.
Say it right now, and then I'll
Well, I
try
was
and
gonna
remember.
say that like I like the idea of I'm not a realm scholar, but I really want to be. If that makes sense. Like I run a blog, and it's a little under utilized right now. But it means it's been like since January since I've written anything on it. But I write like stuff on there of my experience, mostly reading through the Forgotten Realms stuff. every once in a while I'll write like a little article. Like I wrote one about I called it rechristening in like the Forgotten Realms, which was name places that in the history of the Forgotten Realms their name has changed, and I've missed several. I try to make a note when I find another one, like I need to go add that to the article or whatever. Or like another one, like the favorite one I wrote was really short, but when I got the gray box, I discovered that the Thoras alphabet had a 27th letter,
Mm-hmm.
the dental fricative,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not there in the
No,
later ones.
somebody edited it out, not me. Yeah, they were trying to dumb it down and make it simpler. Every single thing. And they wanted all duplications gone. Like I had a demon and a devil that are both
Mhm.
called Ashtaroth.
Hmm.
So if you do a summoning ritual and you don't do it right and get the wrong one,
Oof.
the wrong Ashtaroth arrives completely uncontrolled. And you're going, but I did the ritual, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, too bad, sucker. And they said, that's not fair. And the only one that they wanted to stay was Torm, because they were going
Hmm.
to change the name of the thief character Torm because it was the same as the god's name Torm.
Hmm.
And I said to them, this is a long time ago, okay, in cultural terms. And I said, how many kids were named after JFK or some part of his name? Because he was like a hero to the American people at that time. So how many kids bore his name or some part of it? Torm is named by his parents as a little squalling bundle. They didn't know he was going to turn out to be a thief and a sarcastic asshole. So they were naming him after Torm the god because that was the god that they revered above all the other gods in that household. And they hoped their son would epitomize what Torm was. Didn't work. He did what most young kids did. He rebelled against his parents, but can we leave that one in? And being as it was already in print, they said, yeah, I suppose it's easier to leave it. But they took out all the other. There's 2 Ithmongs in the original realms,
Huh.
and they got rid of one of them. And I liked there being duplications. I mean, if you travel around the eastern half of the United States of America, count up the number of places that are called Lafayette. I'm going to tell you right now, there's more than one.
We don't axe them.
So, so I was just adding little weird oddities and idiosyncrasies to the world because I thought it made it feel more realistic. But there's a difference between the world you're writing for yourself, the setting that
Uh-huh.
is your headcanon, and the published setting that a publisher wants to use as a game setting. They want to try and iron out confusions and inconsistencies, and they tend to want to paint things boldly. So um, they want heroes and they want
Mhm.
villains. Shades of gray bother them. Okay. Now that changes over time with the fads and
Uh-huh.
fashions. Nowadays, oh yeah, you want everybody to be well rounded. But that's also because the later editions of the game, they want your character that you build for yourself to be more well rounded rather than be one dimensional and flawed in their
Mhm.
view. But you see, Gary Gygax was trying to build it. I can force teamwork at the gaming table
Mhm.
because the fighter's a tank but can't use spells.
Mhm.
The wizard is weak as anything. One blow can kill him. He falls into the pit trap. He's dead. But you need that spell. So you have to work together. And he was
Mhm.
deliberately building it that way. And they're going, no, 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 no. Everybody should be able to self realize everything they want to be in the world, which meant you would sit across a gaming table at a convention and some snotty little kid would look back at you and say, so my fighter, magic user, cleric with psionics, his psionic attack this round is going to be this. And he's also going to levitate psionically at the same time as launching this attack. So his wizard spell he'll cast like this, and then his divine magic spell that he casts as a cleric is going to be that, and then he'll attack you with both swords and backstab you because he also took that in thief. And you go, what? but the game was moving in that direction, so therefore the editorial tolerance for all characters being shades of gray, a little more nuanced than evil and I'm shining hero. People were allowed to be other things, which I think was good. And
Mhm.
also, the actual fiction authors, from the word go, were writing in nuance and shading and degradations. And the fact that this character could behave like a dick, I mean a villain, in one scene, and like a hero by the end of the book in another scene, and you didn't see anything wrong in that as a reader, because you could see why they were behaving this way at the beginning, and how
Mhm.
their character progression, how they'd learned, expanded, and grown, or how they were schizophrenic and there were two of them. You're never alone with a schizophrenic. Ha ha ha.
Well, it's funny because like as far as like I see like the gameplay way, like right. It's just like I like the teamwork thing. I requested the same thing when we got to video games like MMORPGs or 3D ones at least, and but yeah, the shade is a great thing. It's funny that you mentioned like cultural of the time. I can't speak culture of the time, and, because like I look at characters like I'm going through the Chronicles of Amber. And Corwin's definitely a great character. You think of Fafhrd and Grey Mouse or even Conan. They're great characters. They're not just completely good or completely evil. I like those characters every once in a while too. I was watching a video yesterday on this actually, and the idea was just like that. Some people will say like if it doesn't have great characters, it's traditional fantasy. I was like, well, Conan is like almost 100 years old, and you could say he's traditional fantasy because he's that old, right? I mean, I don't know. There's a tradition that came after him, sword and sorcery, right, or heroic fantasy, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? He's a great character, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's I don't get the argument, but but yeah, I agree. It's like I like the
He's
nuanced
a
characters.
misogynistic, muscle bound. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, he's got those nice stews.
Yeah, but then
but he's,
again, all of those arguments are muddied by the fact that, people will say, "Oh, but look how women are treated in the books," blah blah blah. And you think a lot of that isn't on the page, it's on the
mhm,
covers. And
yeah.
Howard didn't paint those covers. Howard had blown his brains out before most of those covers were painted. And
Hmm.
why did he blow his brains out? Because his mother died.
Hmm.
And he was incredibly depressed as a result of that. So it's like all this stuff that you're laying at his door might not be justified in laying at his door, or it might be the difference in time culturally that our society has shifted. Because one of the things Howard was showing was that Conan was this noble savage,
Hmm.
and the sophisticated civilized areas that were decadent, and he was sort of a cleansing and renewing force. I mean, most of the smart people in the books are evil. Thulsa Doom and other wizards. They're
Uh-huh.
evil, and Conan overthrows them, or sticks a sword through them, or whatever. And what does he do in the end? He ends up ruling Aquilonia.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's some great stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But society is a moving target, and that's
Uh-huh.
one of the things when people say, "Oh, but but you have characters who condone slavery," and I say, "Yeah, well,
Hmm.
that's bad. By your lights in modern society, yes, it is bad."
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one thing that actually kind of annoys me sometimes. Like, yes, yeah, it's bad, but this is a fantasy thing, like it's a
Yeah,
just because I wrote slavery into my novel doesn't mean I like slavery.
bingo.
It's just
Yeah,
like they
yeah,
have a hard time,
yeah.
breaking that apart,
And
sometimes.
the the
So,
the delight of fantasy and science fiction is that we can explore things we know not to be true. We
mhm,
can look at things that aren't the real world outside our front door every morning. That's why you would go into things that are patently false. Um,
mhm,
I mean, if the thing that makes humans humans is not making tools, there are a lot of other critters that are not human that use tools. The things that makes us humans, we tell stories to each other in order to understand what life is, what the world is like around us. And yes, we know that stories are made up, although people will tell you the best stories are based on truth, or they are true stories. It's things that happen to you, your friends, and your family, because it reveals stuff about you, your friends, and your family to the person you're telling the story to. You know,
Uh-huh.
and in fact, that's one of the ways that we remember people we love after they're dead and gone. Our grandparents and so on. We tell stories about things they did when they were alive or younger or whatever. Stories that about things we may never have seen that were passed on to us. So we're just retelling the story. So we've got to know that some moments of that story were either missing something important or they've been embellished and changed by somebody else. So they're no longer, strictly speaking, the truth in quotation
Mm-hmm.
marks. But if you embark on fantasy or science fiction, you know you're not telling the truth. So why would we do it at all? In order to get to the places that fantasy and science fiction can get us to say, for instance, um, Harlan Ellison used to tell this as one of the shortest science fiction short stories. I see a man sitting in a chair, and the chair is biting his leg. That's the story. And you go, what? But you're looking at things in a different way. We're not used to chairs biting people's legs. So,
This is true.
you know, and Frederick Brown wrote one, and here's a perfect example of changing culture and society because he used the word man. Nowadays, we'd use the word person.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the last man left alive on earth was sitting alone in a room, staring at the cold gray bare walls. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. That's the story. And again, it's like, and that's the whole beauty of fantasy and science fiction. It turns the way we look at the world temporarily on its head so we can have new experiences. And yeah, so to all of those who say, well, and my number one pet peeve is, oh, you had this character say this, like slavery is good, says this character. Well, therefore you believe that. No, I don't. Did you notice that in the story that you're reading, the characters fight each other? And that character who said slavery was good got killed by another character? Well, guess what? If we extend your argument that everything that comes out of a character's mouth or their thoughts that we get to see
Mm-hmm.
is the author's, well, I choose to identify with this character over here in the book who killed that other character. So I'm not guilty of that at all. Nah,
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting topic, I think, but
Yeah.
it's
Tolkien had the best thing. Tolkien, who was an academic, who was
Mhm.
a professor at Oxford, once responded obliquely to criticism of The Lord of the Rings. He's saying, I wish some of these people would have the decency to wait until I'm dead before they start making up their own suppositions about what I meant by what I wrote. You know, which I thought was very good advice. Yes,
Yeah.
please wait till I'm dead, and I'm not there to say you're full of it.
Yeah, right. Now, Tolkien always has like he's such a to use modern colloquialisms, he's a Chad or whatever, right? I mean, but he's just he'll just tear apart his critics, and it's just funny. I don't know. I like his I think he was another thing similar to that. Like, I don't like what you write, so it doesn't matter if you don't like what I write. Essentially, like, I'm paraphrasing, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also or even his the Monsters and the Critics is
Mhm.
a huge criticism of the critics, and so it's just
Yes,
like,
sure.
and it's done very well. He's not like, I don't know, he's not just some guy walking up to you and yelling in your face or anything like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Dismantling the logical fallacies, the straw man arguments.
mhm.
Yeah, the patent unfairness of applying this standard to this person and that standard to another person, whether you like them, depending on whether you like them or not. And so, therefore, there's no consistency in the criticism because you're being nice to this person for doing the very thing you castigated that person for. And therefore, what is the value of your castigation? You know, but yeah, yeah, and off we go on another rabbit hole.
Yeah. Okay. Before I forget the one thing I was saying when I remembered what I had forgotten.
Got it. Yes, back to there. Yes.
Well, one comment on that one thing actually. I have too many comments. But so I would love to see a story like that about that devil demon thing. That I don't. Maybe you wrote one. I just don't know. Haven't read it yet or something. But
I wrote one. I couldn't get it published because it had summoning rituals and people getting torn apart by the
oh,
critter they
oh.
summoned. And and to cap it off, both of the summoning rituals involved writing symbols on the summoner's body with their own blood, which they drew. So they were, in both cases, a male case and a female case, the summoner was naked in the scene, and in one of them, the summoner gets torn apart by the critter that they literally graphically torn apart. But so we had nudity and violence, and of course that means we're not going to publish that.
Oof, rated R. And so...
Well, you always do things for, like for instance, I wrote a scene in the Realms where the flight of dragons came through,
Mhm.
and they came through, of course, when the player characters, the heroes, were out of Shadowdale, and they're running up the Tower of Ashaba, and the steps inside the tower are slick with blood, and they're sliding on human teeth. So, of course, immediately that got edited out. And
Yeah.
well, when I wrote that story about the Ashtaroth, the female summoner gets torn apart, and the people who are running through the scene afterwards, pursuing the demon, are sliding on breasts, which are sliding around the room in the blood. And I was just doing it for gross effect. And the editor said, "Yeah, right. And we're just not going to publish this for gross effect." And
Okay.
I perfectly understand. But as a writer, I wasn't going to self-censor at that point because I wanted to write the story the way I wanted to write it. I understand that afterwards you
Mhm.
may censor it and change it to fit other needs. But when I'm first writing the story in the blaze of creation, I want to do it my way. I want to get as close as I can to the feelings I wanted to evoke and the story I wanted to tell before I start saying, "Oh, okay, we can't show that. Okay, that goes away. Oh, we can't show that. Okay, that goes away." So I don't have a story left. Too bad.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can get it in Dragon Plus. No, but I that made me think of I see. I mentioned before. I write very little, but I do write some. And I had submitted a story to just this amateur magazine, and they rejected it. It's fine. But and but one of the things of feedback I got was like, this is like, I put a lot of like archaic and like language in there, and it's like, because I wrote it for myself, I was like, whatever, I want to write this, but I want to see maybe if I can get it published too, because I'd like $5 in my pocket, it'd make me feel good if I had it
Sure.
published. And so, but then one of the feedback was like, it looks like you're pulling like some of this language from like one source. I was like, sad problem. I'm like, and I was like, in my mind, he's probably pointing out I used the word Carnifex once, and I used Fuligan. I was like, okay, yes, I got those from Gene Wolfe. But I mean, but it's like, but the rest of the words I didn't get from Gene Wolfe. And even if I got 2 words, I mean, like, and maybe I use them more than once or something like that. That's not that seems silly to me. That's some weird feedback, in my opinion. It's like I did it on purpose. So it's like,
Well,
but
yeah. And I always get that too. There's a cadre of younger editors who edit from, how shall I put this? They edit by looking at what Microsoft Word does to prose, and it underlines stuff and so on, which is always a mistake because it's not programmed very well. I'm just going to be polite here. But they'll say things like, "Oh, there's too much repetition," as if that wasn't deliberate. Because I'm using repetition because it drives home the point. And then he swung his sword. The serpent hissed, but seemed unaffected. He swung it again. Still the serpent seemed unaffected. The sword was getting heavier, but he swung it a third time. Oh, repetition. Well, duh. It's like I don't know that. I'm doing it deliberately. What you should say is, this repetition didn't work for me. Here's why. But the lazy part of editing is that repetition. Yeah, well, yes. I used the word "the" a lot of times in this book. It's repeated maybe 1,000 times. Do you want to flag every one of those too? Or they'll say, "Oh, that's too passive." Who the F cares? I
Mhm.
never, ever, ever want to hear an editing comment that says, "Oh, passive voice. Yeah, so what?" We're talking about fiction here. Active or passive shouldn't matter if the authors made that choice. If the authors made the wrong choice, in your opinion, as a reader, tell them, "I think this is the wrong choice here." Don't say, "You used the passive voice." Well, duh.
Oof.
It's
This
like
is
yeah, I don't care. Because I'm not trying to write modern American business gobbledygook. I'm
uh-huh.
writing fiction. So if I
That's
choose to use a tense, I mean, it's perfectly okay if you're an editor say, "Hey, you changed tense in the middle of a sentence," or "your
mhm.
singulars and plurals don't match," because those are basic English grammar mistakes. But to say,
Mhm.
"Excuse me, you use passive," yeah, so I obviously meant to, didn't I? Hmm?
Right. Yeah. It's like it's funny. I talked about this with the last author. I talked to T.W. Anderson, and he came at it. He kind of took like the opposite like point of view, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I think it depends, in some ways. It just depends on it. I mean, like in my mind, yeah, it's like if it's a conscious choice made by the author, then it's a conscious choice, and that's the work. You know what I mean? Like if it's a mistake, sure, tell them there's a mistake here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like grammar mistakes, whatever. But like even then that doesn't matter that much because that comes out in the editing. But it's just like, but it's
Hmm.
more like because like I remember one time I had to do a research paper for class. So classes where it annoys me a lot because I've done a lot more writing for classes rather than for trying to get stuff published. And
Mm.
it's just like, oh, yeah, you made like 10 grammar mistakes, so you're gonna get a D. I was like, but you gave me perfect on my research, and it's a research essay. um doesn't that what like and so it's just like, or like I had this all the time. It's like some people who are editors seem to like to edit just so they can like make people feel bad or something. I don't get it. It's just like because like, oh yeah, you did perfect B. It's like what?
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like
Because nobody gets A's in my class
right,
or
exactly.
something like that.
You had
Yeah.
to knock my socks off to get an A, and it's like, okay, well then you're not doing your job right, but whatever.
Yeah. But then, yeah, that's the thing. That's when you have to take the long view of one of the things that humans do to be human is establish a pecking order. So
Mhm.
this person is establishing a pecking order, and they must be darned insecure if they're the prof slash teacher because they're already installed at the top of the pecking order in that class. So if they feel the need to belittle you to reassure themselves of their position at the top of the pecking order, that speaks more to their problem or current mental state than you.
Mhm.
So therefore, you just sort of go, "Okay, humans being human." Now, you see, I was helped in this because I went through university. My father was a prof at the same university.
Oh.
Oh, he wasn't in a faculty that would ever have taught me. He was in physics, and I was taking
Okay.
journalism.
Yeah.
But we'd strap hang down on the subway to classes in the morning together, and we'd see each other at night at home because I lived in the family house with him while he was sitting there at the dinner table, having cleared his dinner out of the way and marking papers endlessly. So I mean, and so I would get the philosophical view of humans being humans, and I would hear his comments about his colleagues as well as about his students. And of course, because he was a physicist teaching physicists, the majority of his students happened to be male at the time, because we're going back a fair ways. We're going back to the um, early 80s, in fact.
Mhm.
So he would say, "Gentlemen, you know, so gentlemen, I see you've all bought the latest calculators. Isn't that nice? Hand them here, because you're going to do this next engineering exercise without them." "What?" And he'd say, "Well, yeah, I need to know what you know in your head, not what the little machine on your desk has crammed into its butt. Because if you rely on the little machine, but you press the wrong button and the fact it's out by a factor of 10, the bridge will fall down. The bridge you've built and designed will fall down." And they go, "Oh, you're such a dick." Because they were seeing it from the point of view of somebody who could do bad things to them doing bad things to them. But I would say, "Well, no, you have a point. We don't want those bridges to fall down. We don't really care
Uh-huh.
if the guy got 90 or flunked out. We care that he got the engineering degree and the bridge is now falling down.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, no, I get the point. And it's one of the things we do as humans. And in academia, it gets done a lot because we don't pull out swords and stick them through each other like Conan.
God, it would be a lot more exciting that way. Which...
There'd be a lot more meat back on the menu, boys.
Oh yeah.
Roast leg of insurance salesman.
Okay.
And you see, this is how life affects us all. Into every endeavor that we attempt to do, our bodies, or a ringing doorbell, or the planet in general, like, say, a meteor crashing to Earth, will interrupt us from what we were planning to do. Should you wish to have a career like mine, or hopefully better than mine, the way to get things done is put your bum on the chair and your fingers on the keyboard and just keep going. If you're too tired and you think my writing is going to be crap because I'm too tired, write it anyway. It's easier to fix it than to stare at a blank screen or a blank page in the typewriter, which is, where I was doing most of my early writing after I stopped handwriting my novels. It's easier to fix words on a page than to fix a blank page. Truly, it's easier. So just keep at it. That's how you get to do stacks of books. You just keep at it. Just as I'm keeping at it now, filling time until Liam is back. Oh, with that magnificent shirt. Everybody should get a shirt like that.
What about the shirt? Sorry.
Everybody should get a shirt like that.
Yes, I agree. This is a recent acquisition. I think I got it on Redbubble, which...
You mean there are shirts out there with cool stuff on them that I had a hand in designing originally? Oh, well then, I must get some of these things. Now,
right,
you see,
yes.
I'm not the publisher, so I don't go, oh, I must tell my lawyers, because I'm the writer. And I understand that I'll never get a penny from any of these things. I just want all the cool stuff to surround myself with, because you see, gauntlets and so on, there are not enough of them in life. I need to fill my house with more shit. I mean, stuff.
Yes, we call them madams or curios in some cases, right?
Yes, curios. Yes, that's it.
So that's I also have this is not this phone. This is my personal phone, but I have a work phone, and my case on that one is like Heartland's favorite,
cool,
map. So
nice.
It's put away because it's the weekend. I don't have to work today, so my phone's somewhere else where I'm not being bothered. But so yeah, but I got that off Redbubble too, I think, actually. So in fact, actually, I got this case off Redbubble too. But that's
nice. Okay. Yes. Well, what I got from popular culture was Chris Hemsworth in the Lady Ghostbusters movie, where he says, "Answer the phone." And he says, "Oh, I can't." And he points at the fish tank, and the phone's in the fish tank. Yes, that's my way of dealing with it. I don't own a cell phone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the world cannot reach me except by using good old-fashioned phones, or coming to my door, or sending me emails, or catching me on social media. I do communicate with the real world, but nobody is going to have a bell in my house that they can ring at their time, because they do ring it. We're coming up to local provincial elections in Ontario, where I live right now, and it's 3 a.m. The phone is ringing, and it's some polling company saying, "Have you voted, or will you?" And it isn't even a person. It's a telephone tree. We're pressing stuff. And it's like, you woke me up for that? So, if I had cell phones, they would never stop, because I have fun with gamers, designers, and writers all over the world in every time zone. And if you're creative, half the time you forget what time it is where the other person is. You just get the idea, so you dash off a text, or you phone them, and the person goes, "You know what time it is?"
Oh man. Well, that's I can understand then. But it's funny. That makes me want to go write. I don't know why you say that, but I don't know why I think this when you say that, but it makes me want to go write like another Forgotten Realms fanfic. I've over the years, like, I'll write one, and then I'll edit out the realms references so I can just have like this thing set in my
Sure.
own world. So maybe it could actually get published, because no Forgotten Realms stuff is getting published really right now, and I'm like, it's sad, but whatever. So
No, I totally understand that. Yeah, you leave the realms names and everything in it while you're writing it, because then
uh-huh.
it works for you as a story, and you get the color and you get what you're thinking in your
Mhm.
head. And then when it's finished, you take them out so you can publish it. Yeah, no, I get that. That's totally okay.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
great.
happened a couple times.
Yeah.
I've had like a story set in Luskin. It's like, it's not Luskin anymore. Get that out of here. So, or like I had one in a Battle Rise Cormir. And I was like, oh, this is so good. And I felt like when I was editing, I was like, I'm just taking all the color out of it. But, so,
And now it's set in the small hamlet of Battle Fall.
yeah, right. So it's very similar in some ways. Like you could still insert it, maybe change a
Yep.
direction, change the name slightly, you know what I mean? But like it works, right? It's the same story, right? But um, thanks,
And
thanks
that's
Forgotten
totally
Realms for the
okay.
inspiration. But
We
so
all do in life what floats our boat, which is why there's so many books around me, because we don't all write the same, we don't all like the same stuff. And it would be a
mhm.
really boring world if we did. But yeah, if there's
Yeah.
something that floats your boat, and if it's writing a Forgotten Realms novel, write it. Just, yeah, that's the thing. All of you who are listening to this, you can't publish it unless you file off the serial numbers, the realm stuff. But you can still write it for you. It can still work
Uh-huh.
for you. Do what you want to
Yes.
do in life. If what you want to do is corner the market on garden gnomes and plant them in your garden, assuming you have a garden, Um, and if that's still your goal in life and you live in an apartment like Liam, okay, then one of your goals has to be to get a vast estate that can be a garden to put your gnomes in. There's these steps, these things you have to achieve in life. And if you have to
Yes.
end up owning Google, Twitter, or a small South American country in order to do these things, do it. Or at least have fun trying, because life is the journey, not the destination. We're all ending up at the same destination. So it's the journey you take to get there. So have fun. Have fun storming the castle. No. If storming the castle is what you wanted to do this weekend.
Right. Right. Yes. For me, not personally, I think I'm gonna go watch The Northman again, actually, in theaters. But
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah, watch them storm the castle.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
it's a lot less sweaty.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh,
You get to sit in a nice, comfy chair.
now there should be a YouTube short clip, an ad to do with Northman. It actually precedes that.
Oh.
I think it's called "A Helmet Is Always a Good Idea,"
Oh yeah.
and it's a Viking chief is about to leave on a war expedition, and his son comes running out with his helmet, and he doesn't want to wear the helmet. It's
Interesting.
hilarious. You should watch it.
I'll have to watch
Yeah.
that.
It's
Interesting.
moments like that, those little human moments that are captured, that you go, ah, now that's what makes a story worth reading. These little moments, because after all, a lot of the books we read, there are little key moments that we love in the book,
Mhm.
and that's what we're rereading the book for the 40th time to get to those juicy moments. We
Right.
don't want
Yeah.
we don't you don't just want to open the book and go straight to the moment, because then it won't have the weight and impact that it will
Mhm.
have when you read your way up to it. You get there and you'll go, yeah. But it's
Yes,
that little,
exactly.
yeah.
I thought the moment for me in a book I recently finished, I read Beyond the Moons, for Spelljammer book by David Cook.
Hmm.
And the part where he's talking to, what's her name? Quailanis, I think, the elf maiden on the ship. And I was like, this is such a nice, deserved moment. Like, this is the best part of the book right here. And it is. No, but there's no arguing, no striking. But but it makes me think of like even something like, it's funny, like the little things I'll remember. I think there's a story of yours. I think it's an Untold Adventures, which has stories from several settings.
Hmm.
The Lord of the Darkways,
Lord of
if
the
I
Dark
remember
Ways,
correctly.
Untold Adventures. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love that one. But I think it's a few things like the Dark Ways between Symbia and Zintel Keep were cool. But the little interaction at the beginning, I think it's Mishra coming to get Elminster, who's in Inner Lith, and he's like painting who I don't remember the people in charge, right? And it's just like, but I'm pretty sure he's like essentially naked, and like so are the Lord and Lady, and I'm just like, man, this is awesome. And now I'm gonna, whenever I can ever get anything going with a D&D party again in Faerun, I'm gonna have them look for that painting. So,
It's important when you're writing a story to have fun, because if you're having fun writing it, it comes through on the page, and it'll be fun to read.
it was very fun to read. So, I love that story. And there's another good one in that, the one by Rosemary Jones, actually, I think is in there too. Is it Dreaming in Waterdeep? That one's a good one too. So.
Yeah. Yep. I and Rosemary right now is writing a bunch of Arkham horror.
I have the first
novels.
one. I haven't read it
Oh,
yet.
good.
Actually.
Okay, yeah, they're fun. It's like I always watch out for everything she's going to release and then buy it.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there are lots of I love everything Aaron Evans writes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my favorite authors over the years have died, and luckily for me, I got a chance to meet them or become friends with some of them, like
Uh-huh.
Roger Zelazny, Terry Pratchett. We just lost Patricia McKillop last week.
Yeah.
There are people that you love their books and you're waiting for the next one, and it will never come. So it's your job to write new ones that you'd like to read, because the voices are getting stilled all around us all the time. I'm waiting for a new Ellen Kushner's Swords Point book. I'm waiting for Robin McKinley to write us something else. I'm waiting. Julian May died a few years ago, and I was waiting for more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So our job is to become the writers that we wanted to read when we were kids, which is why you're seeing all these cool movies out of Hollywood now, because all the little nerds who wanted Marvel characters to get their own movies or great science fiction space opera movies
Mm-hmm.
ended up running film studios. So now, by George, damn it, they're going to write and draw and create and helm the movies they wanted to be in the theaters when they were little kids, because they finally got their hands on the toys, and they're going to do it. And of course, it's a delight for all of us. We may bitch about how this character was portrayed, about how that movie had a lame bit in it or whatever, but the movie exists, and it wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for a nerd saying, I'm going to do this before I die. Out of my way. So that's the secret. We all have to do whatever moves us. And I've been very lucky. I've managed to get my world published, and tons of other people have come in and written in it, worked in it, designed in it,
Mm-hmm.
and made it richer and richer. And there's cool stuff for us all to share. And it will go on after I die, because people will still use it. So, hey, I won.
You did it. that encourages me to go and finish. I have a couple stories that are not finished right now, but I just thought of one actually. It was this is totally me, not even trying to be like shy about it, but I named, there's a sorceress in the story, and I named her totally after Elminster. Her name's Elminara, which is Elminster and Elmara mixed, which are both Elminster anyways. But yeah, and so it's just like, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be honest.
If it works,
Like, it's very, very.
if it
upfront,
works,
but...
if it makes the character come alive for you, do it.
Yeah. So I need to
And
go finish that
then
one.
look at it when you finish the book, and you've finished it, and you set it aside for a week or two, and then you reread it and you say, yeah, this doesn't suck. Good. I like it. Now, look at it from a cold, hard lawyer's point of view. Okay, is that close? No, it isn't. I can get away with that name. Good. We keep it.
I can get away with that. That's funny. I like it when I see stuff like that. That's inspiration. Though. It's like seems an awful lot like this. Like there's I was talking to a fellow person on YouTube. We call it BookTube. They make books videos about books. That also likes Forgotten Realms, and he was telling me that I think it's by a guy named Mark Timoney. I might be misremembering, but it's called Blood on the Spear, Blood of the Spear, something like that. And the cover is obviously inspired by the Spellfire cover. And he was saying, he was telling the author that it's like, this looks a lot like the Spellfire cover, and he's like, you're the first person to point that out. But it seems like it was on purpose, you know what I mean? Like, but another thing that this is why I decided to like kind of like finally talk to authors and stuff like you, because I've only talked to a couple, but I was just like, you know what, I want to talk to Ed Greenwood. I'm gonna see if he'll talk to me. And I knew you talked to other people, so I was like, yeah, I'd probably say yes. He's pretty nice. And but and then like, because I look at like authors like I'd like to talk to, but by the time I finally got to their books, they're already dead. And so it's like, well, like I can't talk to Zelazny or Gene Wolfe, who just passed away a few years ago, right? Or Liber, that was like before I was born when he passed away. Same with Tolkien, and so it's just like, and I want to talk to those guys, but I can't. So I'll just talk to the ones that are alive right now before they die, and because they could be dead tomorrow or whatever, right? So like, regardless of how old or young they are. So yeah.
Yep. No, it's fun because we're all just going through life. And yeah, I know they say never meet your heroes, because and of course what they mean is you'll discover that so and so was an utter dick, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they're just weird and flaky, and it's like, okay, I don't know what that was that just happened, but but the main thing is you'll find out that they're just like you. They may come from a different background. They're probably older, but they're basically the same thing. They're writing things to entertain themselves, and they're having fun with stuff that lights their fire. And if the same stuff lights enough of your fires that you like their stuff, then it's like being fans of the same football team or hockey team, or fans of the same movie series or TV series. You can sit there and bitch about it together, and you're really just enjoying it together. You're
Yeah.
finding new ways of enjoying it, and yeah, and the creative people, and we've seen this with Discworld, Terry Pratchett's creation. They create stamps, they create coins, they create maps, because Terry's voice has been silenced, but if they have the approval of the estate to do stuff, they can do stuff that add to the stuff we already have, just because they're fans. They're just doing stuff because they love. Yeah, they're going to make some money off of it, hopefully later, that might cover their cost. But that's not, they're doing it because they're fans. They would choose something else, like making Bitcoin, or starting their own bank in the Caymans, and shifting. I mean, if there are better ways to make money than making up this lovely fantasy stuff. So if
Right.
anybody is in this for money, they're made the wrong-headed decision in the first place. They should be doing something else, at the very least being a
Definitely.
broker playing the markets. But we do things, we create things, like all this stuff around me that's created by lots of different people, and they created it because they love whatever it is. I mean, that's why we do these things. We don't do it for money. Anybody who's read my tax returns knows that we definitely don't do it for money. But
I feel you. No. uh, that's funny. No.
but on the other hand, you look at all those books that you have up on the screen. When I'm dead and gone, some of those books will still be out in the world, and somebody may leave one on the seat of a bus or a subway car that they rode in, they mistakenly leave it behind, and somebody else may pick it up, and instead of throwing it in the garbage, they may leaf through it and go, "Oh, I'm taking this home." And then they'll take it home and devour it, and they go, "This is cool. Where's the next one?" And of course, I'm dead and gone by then. But the story lives on. The story lives on. And that's what we do it for. To make other people's lives a little bit more fun.
Yeah, no, I like that. That definitely the story does live on, and kind of what you were going back to earlier. I was like, when you said that some people will say we're like the tool making animal or ape, if they
Yeah.
want to say it that way, and
Yeah.
I was just like, when people, I would say this all the time. I studied anthropology actually for a little bit. That was my major until I didn't want to take a couple of the classes, so I switched it. But and so I always tell people like, we're the storytelling animal. That's what humans are. Like if you want the handyman, go to Homo habilis, they're all dead. And so, but but that's the fun of it. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the thing that I like about like my major, for example, right now, because I'm still in school. Who knows if I'll ever graduate at this rate? Is humanities, and it's just like I like humans. I like humankind. It's just like I like art in a sense. I like whatever makes us human. You know what I mean? And so it's just like in my case, I like literature more than I like painting or something else. You know what I mean? Like literature. And so like.
Sorry, I'm remembering my father. When he had a particularly exasperating student, or he'd say, "I like humans," on a platter with an apple in their mouths.
Sounds like quite an interesting dad you got there. I've heard some other stories on other like things like this that you've done with other people, and I was like, okay, that's a interesting childhood, but that sounds cool.
Oh yeah,
just
oh
like...
yeah, I had an interesting childhood. All right, yep, mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is fine. Shows up in the stories and makes them more fun. And so, but it's just like, yeah, it's just like what I want. Like, even though it's like kind of what we were going to earlier, it's like, yeah, just because there's slavery in my book doesn't mean I like slavery, right, or something like that, But just at the same time, you can get a feel for the person, because like you said, it's like what you actually should get is that I don't like slavery. Like I don't want this person to act like a dick, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't think acting like his dick is good, you know what I mean? This person does, but it's to prove a point, kind of, or like, and I'm not going to be in your face. It's not going to be like, well, maybe it could be allegory if you really wanted it to be, and Tolkien didn't like it, right? And so it's just like, but you can learn stuff more about it, just like when you read Gene Wolfe, you learn a lot of like his philosophy on life, where you can tell, just like Tolkien, that his Catholicism, for example, was really important to him. It's just like, but it's not in your face. They're not like, I mean, Tolkien would call his work a Catholic work, kind of, or a Christian one at least, but you're not like, I'm converting to Christianity after I read this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not at all, like at all.
Catholic work, and yet there's not a single temple or priest in The Lord of the Rings. They're just not there.
Thank goodness. It's I love it. I mean, I made a video on this actually yesterday. It's not out yet, but I was just like, when someone makes a writer, or it really means any creator, but I was specifically talking about like prose. That is like when they make this conscious choice to make it that way, then maybe you could say it doesn't work. In some cases, like I gave the example for me, something that didn't work was like the Prince of Nothing books by R. Scott Baker. I found the prose to be rather purple, you know what I mean? But like when I read Gene Wolfe, like his Book of the New Sun, it's like, yeah, that prose is ridiculous, you know what I mean? But it's done he did it on purpose, because he wants you to realize this is not what I know, essentially, right? This is a weird, way far future. Like, it's not something I would recognize, and so he utilizes the English language to do that, you know what I mean? Or some would maybe argue that he utilized the Greek language to do that, but that's good in my mind. It's like, it's a conscious choice. Not everyone's gonna like it, you know what I mean? I think it's awesome, personally. Like, if I'm able to connect with it, in some way, not just, I think the story's great, you know what I mean? But I think that conscious decision, that use of language. I mean, like Elminster uses thee and thou, even, I mean, it's just like, and why? It's because it's to show that he's old, like very old, right? And so like, and it works, that's a decision that makes sense. It works, makes sense, and I think it gives some of Elminster some of his charm, right? You know what I mean? So like, right? So it's just like stuff like that. I like that. I like the conscious creation of arts. Maybe not everyone is gonna recognize that conscious decision, and that's fine. In some cases, it's a little weird or annoying when they criticize it because they just missed the mark or something. But but like, I don't know. For me, a lot of times it's like, okay, this book isn't for me. Like, I don't read a lot of like erotica, for example. You know what I mean? But that's me. If you want to go read erotica, cool. If you're gonna write erotica, cool. But I don't personally want to read that much of it. You know what I mean? Or any. It depends.
Oh dear. So many aisles of the library closed to.
Oh my.
It's totally okay. I get it, and I agree. It's whatever you want to read. It's for you. not for a critic to say you should like this stuff and you shouldn't like that stuff. No, it's for you. If it's all entertainment, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to assume that you don't eat books.
I do
As
not
in,
eat books.
yeah, you do not cut them up and put ketchup on them or whatever and try and eat them. So therefore, these books are not keeping you alive in that sense. So therefore, they're entertaining you. They may be
Mhm.
keeping you alive in the sanity sense, but they're basically entertainment. And frankly, what entertains you should be your business, not some critics.
Mhm.
The best thing a critic can do is say, "Hey, you might have missed this, so try this."
Mhm.
So pointing out something to you that you might have missed because it was written in another language, or it's in another country, or it's one of the 40,000 books that came out that year that you didn't have enough money to buy, and your wife hasn't thrown you out of the apartment because there's still room in the apartment for you and
There's
her,
still room.
because not
Yes.
every inch is full of books because you didn't buy them all yet. Uh, by the way, I have noticed that there's so much wasted space behind you. There's a door that you went through, and there's no shelf above it.
Oh, you're right. Oh man, I've so far I've been keeping all the books to 2 rooms, and this is not one. This is the one my wife wants clear. So
No, I totally understand the needs of the spouse. Yes, no, I totally understand. I took care of that by buying shipping containers and then expanding the
yes,
house twice for my wife. And what my wife got her rooms, and I
yeah,
kept
yeah.
the cellar with my books.
Yeah, this is essentially my wife's room. Actually, my computer, the computer I use to record stuff like this, sits in here, and so it's just like, and I got all these books, and I was like, put these right here so they're in the video kind of in a, yeah, but then I'll put them back whenever I'm done.
So,
So
so you'll take them away when you're done, and it will be her room again. I get it. Yes,
yes,
no, that's totally okay. We do what we must. We
what we
get through
must,
life
yes.
with our coping mechanisms, and that is one of them. What is this stack of books doing in my room? Oh, sorry, dear, I'll move it. And even
Right,
better, it's gone before she notices it.
exactly. See, she's out of town right now, so she'll never know.
Okay, now quick. We've got to end this so you can repair the hole in the ceiling before she gets back, and she'll never know.
Man.
Well, dear,
Uh,
me and the guys, we were testing a catapult, and things
yes.
happen.
You can use your imagination from there.
Yeah.
That that were man, sorry. I have a question, real quick. Actually, well, I have a couple questions, but I know we're running a little low on time. But and I don't know if, let's see, you'll probably answer these. What would be like your favorite D&D setting that's not Forgotten Realms? Maybe.
I don't I don't have favorites. That's a
Okay, I knew you'd
um
say that.
there are things I like. Like
Yes.
years and years ago, TSR, and they weren't the first, nor were they the last, did Lankmar
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
setting. They got, yeah, and
Good in
I
Games actually
loved,
is doing that right
yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly. And I love the opportunity to play in Lankmar, that sort of
Mhm.
cool city vibe. Um, I contributed a little something to Amoria's Dawn setting, in which I took a city that they'd named and written a couple paragraphs, and it just expanded it into
Mhm.
slightly more paragraphs. But it was again a decadent, weird, grimy city with stuff happening. That's a cool thing. Um,
Mhm.
I loved what Mark Tassin did with Aetaltis behind you there.
Mhm.
Um, I loved what Pelgrane Press did earlier when they had the license to do like Jack Vance's Dying Earth,
Mm.
and they brought the Dying Earth to life um, as a game setting. I like a game setting Pelgrane Press is doing right now called Swords of the Serpentine.
Huh.
But they aren't favorites. They're things that intrigue me that I want to look at more.
Yeah.
I don't have a favorite. I have lots of enthusiasms. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Things I want to look at. Um, I love it when somebody does the atmosphere of Lovecraft Country, as
Uh-huh.
they've now dubbed it. Where they give us Innsmouth and these rotting, creepy old things. That sort of I like that sort of thing, and the idea that um, the otherworldly, the sinister, is amongst us all. So, you're in an old New England town with a university, and there's some thing called the Silver Twilight Lodge, and that sort of thing that appeals to me. The behind the masks. There's another world that it coexists with our own. Wahaha. All that sort of stuff. So there are many settings, and I can admire any classical, if you want to use the term fantasy setting, the sort of vaguely medieval come Renaissance, but swords and magic are on stage together with each other setting that is done well, is designed well. Like when Wolf Bauer designed Midgard
Yeah, yeah.
for that, I buy all that stuff. I assemble it. Um, Watching Paizo put together Galarian, same thing, and I had tiny bits of a hand in all of those settings, and I buy them avidly, buy all the pieces and read them because I want to see somebody else doing their world building. I want to walk the streets of Zobek, that sort of thing,
Uh-huh.
as well as my own stuff. So uh, I don't have a favorite, but I have lots of favorites. My problem is I don't have enough time to go down the
Yes.
rabbit hole
Oof.
fully with
Yeah.
all my favorites. You know,
I know, it's so sad, right? I feel you there. Yeah, I didn't think you would say you had a favorite. I mostly wanted to hear what you just said, actually. But sorry for that.
no, that's great.
So
And
yeah.
I watched what Ken Hite and Robin Laws did with Pelgrane. So
Hmm.
Bookhounds of London. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. That whole idea of going through London and there's sinister stuff hidden in the bookshops. And Robin Laws did this stuff about Paris, with
Hmm.
the weird painters and the fin de siècle and all that stuff that's going on, and for Yellow Sign and so on. And I'm going, oh, I want this. I want this. You know. So yeah, I like all this stuff.
Too much. There's too much to consume it all. At least that's what I feel like. I'm never going to consume it all. So, I mean, I already have hundreds of books I want to read that I haven't read yet. So, um,
And then you reread favorites,
yeah, I know. I
and
just
even
reread
more
one.
of your
But
time is gone, and that's okay. That is okay.
yeah, yeah.
Books
I'll
do
keep on telling
furnish a
myself.
room.
This is true. I um oh darn, that thought went away. Oh, happened again. That's okay. But let me
It'll
think for a
come
second.
back,
Yeah,
really.
it will. It's elusive. But yeah. Oh, what was it? It was something. Oh, one of the thoughts was yeah, like I just recently, I'm because of Forgotten Realms, kind of, I'm a sucker for like shared worlds, right? And like I saw this author that it was actually an author I was on his subscribed to his newsletter, and I don't remember subscribing to it, but there's a couple of those in my email. And he's like, he had a new book. I was like, okay, that looks interesting, I guess. So it's cool. I'm reading this newsletter. I just delete half of them, but and I was like, hey, this is part of a shared world, huh? And it just started last year. Maybe I could catch up, relatively quickly. I mean,
Hmm.
it's called Eldros Legacy, and I've only read they have like this free anthology you can get on their website, and there's only 4 novels, and the fourth one just came out a couple days ago, and so I'm just like, shared world, that doesn't sound too bad. I could just catch up on that real quick. And so it's just like I like that idea. I think actually, and this is random from what I just said, but Goodman Games actually has Advanced Designer stuff coming out now, actually, just like they did Water or whatever. So, but funnily, I've never played well, it's not funny, I guess. So considering how little time I get to play D&D, and when I play D&D, I generally am actually playing Castles and Crusades. I just modify whatever setting to Castles and Crusades. But
Totally okay.
yeah, I haven't actually played Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I'd really like to. But I also have like several other systems in my closet waiting to be played. Like Giant Lands or some other stuff. It's just like,
Yeah, I mean, gaming companies want to sell you settings because they want to sell you
Yes.
stuff. But I'm like most old gamers. I don't care what setting we're playing, unless
Hmm.
somebody is going to use an arcane rule that goes with this game to trap us. Like, you can't do that because in this game you're not. Oh Jesus! So now I get to kill you all.
That's
That's not going to thrill me. But I mean, other than that, I just want the storytelling,
uh-huh.
and I want the setting around me, whether it's a dungeon or a slum or a cellars or the sewers of a city. I just want the setting around me. I really don't care what the falling rules are, or the birth circle
Right,
damage,
right.
or
Which
whether
is
dwarven women have beards.
yes, which is actually one of the reasons I use Cast and Crusades because it's rules light, and the way it does do rules is kind of in a way I like. But uh,
Hmm.
but I
That's
do
one of
have
the reasons I like this Fate of the Norns thing I'm working on now,
uh
because Andrew replaced dice with runes. You cast
oh really?
runes, see what you're doing, and you
What kind of
play
runes it is? Is
runes.
Futhark or something
Yes,
or
it's the Elder Futhark.
huh? That's
And
cool.
and one of the things is, once you've played a rune to do something, you can't use it again in the same combat round. So
I'll
it
have to
it
check it out.
limits it limits what you can do just by, physically drawing runes from a bag.
Yeah,
You know,
I have a bag of runes, but they're Futhork. I have a
yeah,
Elhaz
yeah,
right here actually around my neck.
okay,
But well, Elhaz and Futhark or Elder Futhark, it's Aox and Futhork. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know the runes a little. But so but I had one question before we do close this out here in the next 10 minutes or so, I guess. That I have made a video about like generations, and I've made a blog post too, and I recommend all the time on like Discord or whatever or Twitter. And what are like some of your favorite Forgotten Realms novels? That's
Oh
probably a
boy,
hard question. That's
yeah, yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, I love Homeland by
okay. Yeah.
Bob Salvatore, because that introduced the Drow to us in a
Hmm.
wonderful novel. I love Elf Shadow by Aileen Cunningham and all
Hmm.
of its sequels, Elf Song, etc. Because when I first read Elf Shadow, I realized that what Elaine had done was read FR1, Waterdeep in the North, and
Oh.
really sink her teeth into it. But it was like, how is this woman reading my mind? She's bringing Waterdeep to life. This is Waterdeep. I was never brought up short by anything that didn't fit.
Uh-huh.
I love City of the Dead by Rosemary Jones.
Hmm.
Um, it's one of the novels I reread. Down Shadow by Eric Scott DeBee, which is just a wonderful adventure romp with such hilarious moments in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
can see now after reading more of you, I can see that it seems somewhat similar to your style in some ways.
yeah, I love Erin Evans when she's writing in the Realms. Susan
Mhm.
Morris, our editrix, didn't write enough in the Realms, in my opinion, but I love it when she is running. I love Jeff Grubb and Kate Novak writing together.
That's a great duo, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but it is really hard to pick favorites. Really
I can
hard.
imagine. I
Um,
keep on asking you too, but
yeah. Because I don't do life that way. Because
uh-huh. Oh,
it's sort of
same.
like, if I'm in this mood, then in this mood that's a favorite,
Right,
and
yeah.
in this other mood this is a favorite. So my favorites can change with what I need to read or reread right now.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's also things like, I like Cormier, a novel that its covers on the screen there above us in the center.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that process. Jeff and I are writing alternative chapters, and then we're trading chapters and overwriting each other. And
Hmm.
he's writing most of the past history chapters and bringing Cormier from the beginning up to modern time. And I'm writing most of the modern day chapters. First go. And we're writing Michener in the Realms. That was our brief. We were told to write. Okay. And Bill Larson, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who was a veteran old editor at the time, I remember him receiving the first two turnovers and saying, "Oh, this isn't nearly as bad as I've been led to believe." So there are novels that are favorites for my memory of the process rather than for necessarily what's in them. But I mean,
Okay.
it's also Cormier is one of my wheelhouses.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that we got to play in Cormier, and therefore I got to see Cormier. And because Jeff was doing all the past bits of Cormier, he was bringing Cormier to life, bits that I hadn't detailed and didn't know about. So Cormier was coming alive for me as I read the book. So I mean, they're favorites that way. So I have lots of different favorites. So again, I am weaseling out of an answer to your question because I
Oh
do
no.
not have a single favorite. Ta-da!
That's okay. That's fine. What I try to do, since I talk a lot about books on my channel, because that's basically all I talk about. But I mean, I do give like my opinion of stuff, but I also, in some ways, try to be like, uh, objective rather than subjective or whatever. I think I just used that right. That is a phantom in my mind. I feel like I'm always using it
Objective?
wrong. Yeah.
Objective? I don't know.
I know. But like give them stuff like, because like for example, you mentioned City of the Dead. And it's like if you like gothic type things, this might be the Realms novel for you type of thing. Or like if you like a younger protagonist, Venom in Her Veins is a pretty good one, or even Brimstone Angels or Mistor, there's a lot, if you like good interpersonal relationships, like I think Evans does a really good job of that overall. Just like if you like good fun, like great rocks, like the B or Greenwood, right here. But and so it's just like
And if you
you
like tons and tons of Realms lore,
Mhm.
Steve Shen with Blackstaff and Blackstaff
Yeah,
Tower.
yeah.
There's so much in those books,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, this guy knows the realms. Look at all these little things, these threads and details he's pulling in.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's all what you want.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's funny, that just reminded me of, I've only read one, I think, by Shind, and it was actually Blackstaff Tower. I haven't read Blackstaff, but I'll get there. I have it. My favorite short story probably. I have a lot of favorites. Whether it be Conan or something you wrote, or something by Liber or whatever. I feel like the one that just like I generally put above the others. Generally, it just obviously depends on my mood, but generally is a Black Arrow by Sar Cordell that's in Realms of War. I absolutely love that story. For whatever reason, when I read it, I was like, wow, that was amazing. Whatever
Yep.
I just read.
Yep.
And that's the only thing I've read by Cordell so far, actually. I have a few of his Realms novels and stuff, but I love that story. So yeah.
And he's designing a way for Monty at Monty Cook Games right now. So
oh really?
there's stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
there's still
check out
stuff
all that
going
cool
on.
stuff.
I was
There's
I need to, that my idea I have is that like once I read more of like a certain, like I said, like before, like I've read several of your novels, even though I haven't even read like majority at all. That I was like, I can talk to Ed, but like I'd like to talk to like Jeff Grubb, or like these other ones like Philip Athens once I read more of his stuff, or just that, like it'd be fun, right? Because like, but I don't want to talk to him if I haven't read their stuff, but because then I feel weird. But
well, it gives you less to talk about.
yes,
If you know what I mean.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand you've written a book. I have.
Yes.
Have you
How
read it?
exciting.
No.
All right, exactly. It's I feel like I'm not that with just making a conversation work that way. So I was like, I need to have read at least enough where I feel comfortable talking for a couple hours. If I can.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah. You don't want to tell the author, "Oh, I'm waiting for the movie."
Yeah. Right. Definitely. Yeah. In the case of the realm stuff, it's like the only one that's going to happen with probably is Salvatore, right? But
well, I can
we
tell
could
you
hope.
that the current D&D movie is in post.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that actually. I
Aha! Aha!
I have the novelization of the. I know they're not realms, but of the one of the D&D movies, because there's several, I think, aren't they?
Yes.
So yeah, but is this one in realms? Is there? I think that was like, is that ever confirmed? No, it was in rumored. Okay. Well, okay. Yes. So a D&D
Yes.
movie sounds great, which is awesome. But I guess we could probably get going here. It's been really fun chatting with you, Ed. I really appreciate you coming on here. I think I forgot to say thanks for doing that at the beginning. Uh,
Oh, no problem. I love doing
very.
this.
I'm glad. I hope you had a good time. Hope I wasn't too cardboardy and a little
You were
very.
fine. We're just hanging out and talking books.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess, I mean, we'll be able to catch you. I think so. The Athcliath stuff is going right now, which I think I might have forgot to mention in the beginning as well. Wow, that was because the doorbell rang. Actually, that's what was going on. So
The doorbell rang. Somebody wrote a book. No, never mind.
no, that's a good idea. But no, yeah. So Athcliath, I think that stuff is it on Patreon?
We have a Patreon where we explore Athcliath, and I do little bits for free on Twitter every day. I post news and
Yes.
rumors
Yes, I
about
see those.
the city of Athcliath. Athcliath is a real place. It's Dublin, but it's Dublin circa 835 AD. So the Vikings are ruling it. They're going to get pushed out soon in real life history, and we've monkeyed with real life history because King Sitric Swaran, the one-eyed king, the king of Athcliath, I wrote a novel which hasn't been published yet. It will be part of the Kickstarter. It's called The One-Eyed King, and it's finished and edited and all over 9 yards. But King Sitric, we kept him alive longer than in real life. So we're giving
Oh,
you a fantasy version of Dublin, and it's going to
nice.
be a box set, and it's
Oh,
going to be a city, and every building in the city has at least one NPC in it that's detailed. So you're going to, and there's 96 city blocks.
that's a lot of
So
work.
yeah, it's a lot of, it's been a year and a half so far of me detailing city blocks. So it doesn't matter whether you want to do Vikings or our real world or anything. You can file off the names if you don't like Viking
Mhm.
patronyms and matronyms. You can rename the characters, but it does all the plotting legwork of designing a city for you. So you can just use it in your own fantasy game, whether it's Fate of the Norns or not. Fate of the Norns is the one I mentioned earlier, which is
Mhm.
Viking era role playing with runes rather than dice. But if you just want to play D&D or whatever floats your boat, Castles, Crusades, whatever, and use the city, it will be a very useful city in which everything works. You know where the food comes from and the water comes from. You know where the chamber pots get emptied into. You know where people buy their stuff. Everything is detailed and described. The city works. And if you happen to be independently wealthy and have $4,200 American to blow, Andrew is running a tour of Ireland this summer, which he
Wow.
will take you. You know, D&D in a castle. This will be D&D in several castles and other places all over Ireland.
That sounds
I
pretty
don't.
cool.
I can't leave home. I'm looking after my wife right now, or I'd
Mhm.
be there like a shot because it's a chance to see all the. But anyway, yeah, that's one of the things I'm doing. I'm also doing a new Volo's guide, with a
Oh.
completely different creative crew. That'll be out late in the year. It keeps receding into the past, not because it isn't substantially done, but because we're having so much fun doing it. So we keep
Oh,
adding
really?
stuff. Yeah,
Is it a location one or like a uh,
it's a city. It's one
okay.
city.
Yeah. Oh. I have the Guide to Cormyr. It's the only one I have actually, but I love it. So
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be Volo being bitchy Volo all over the place.
nice. I
But every part of the city he goes to, and it's got a lot of districts, you'll get a little fiction vignette just to introduce that thing of Mert and Volo walking the city together, so we learn what this particular district or neighborhood is like and why.
mm,
You know, this is the docks.
oof.
This is where the wealthy people live. This is where the nobles live, which is why all their guards are following us because we don't look reputable. You know, that sort of stuff. So, so we're just going to have fun. And I
Nice.
just finished a book on Say
Sounds
that you can
fun.
get at the Dungeon Master's Guild. A big
Yeah,
glossy
yeah,
hardcover.
yeah. I've been meaning to get that one. I
Yeah,
understand my money on
I'm
books,
busy,
but
busy,
there's too
busy.
many books. But but yes, yeah, the Fey one I saw. I do
There
have the
is
War
no
Kingdom
such
one though,
thing
so
as too many books. There's just too
no
little
such
time and
thing.
too little money.
Yes, yes, yes. Very, very
Remember,
true
remember,
on that
remember
one.
that mission I sent you about buying the apartment building?
Yes, yes.
You can
I'll
start
work
it.
on it.
You can start
Oh.
evicting tenants and putting your books in them.
Okay, as long as I make enough money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to. I look forward to that Volo's Guide then for sure. I still need to get the Thay one. And the One-Eyed King, yes. Is there any like ETA on that Kickstarter? Um,
ASAP.
okay.
I mean, no, I mean, I can tell you that some of the books are in editing right now. Some of the books are
Mhm.
finished editing.
Okay.
The pandemic is affecting all of the printing
Yeah.
and shipping. Um, I'm not the publisher. Andrew Volkowskis is the publisher.
Hmm.
Pendlehaven is the name he goes by, and he's just stick handling all these things through. I can tell you that Athcliath City, I am like 4 city blocks away from finishing the overview, which is the quick and dirty guide to each city block. You then get the southern fifth of the city or so in a deep dive block where you go over and you get everything about the characters. You get menus for all the taverns, you get price lists for all the shops. Okay. And then there's more that has to go into this box set. Plus, of course, the gorgeous maps. So that it is several stages down the road from being done. But all the other stuff, like this Kickstarter gives you 3 novels and 2 or 3 graphic novels.
Really?
And
Jeez Louise.
yeah,
He didn't,
I think
that's a big bite he's
I
trying to
think
chew right
Andrew called it the
there.
Ultimate Viking Anthology. Yeah. So if you search Ultimate Viking Anthology on Kickstarter, you'll see the big roster of stuff. But I can tell you that the novels are done substantially. Yeah. Yeah, and so and the graphic novels are mostly done, and Ask Cleath is somewhat done. Okay. And then Andrew has to stick handle all of them through the actual production things of getting them printed, bound, put together,
Yeah.
and then using the fulfillment to get them out to all the backers so they all get their stuff. Um and then he wants to do another Kickstarter, and then
Oh.
another, and then another for different things. But I mean, so when you say when will it be done, that's why I said ASAP,
Yeah,
because
okay.
Andrew wants to fulfill one Kickstarter before he starts another. And this one, the Ultimate Viking one, was delayed because Children of Eriu, which was the big glossy hardcover book to do with Ireland, what becomes
Mhm,
Ireland, in
mhm.
the Fate of the Norns game. And by the way, go to the Pendlehaven website, go to Fate of the Norns, and just look, and you'll see how gorgeous all the books are. Like the art is gorgeous. So when you're putting together a book, it's not like slap, 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 we're done. No, no, no. There's gorgeous art. It all has to be commissioned, done.
Mhm.
The book has to be put together. It has to look nice.
Understandably.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely have to check it out. And I'm sure. Well, I'm not. I don't have a super big channel, so if someone gets to the end, then I imagine they check it out too. But but yes, I'm sure we could talk a lot longer. But there are other things to do in a day, I guess. Maybe we
Oh
can chat another
no.
time if you
Sure. Yeah.
aren't so
Yeah.
scared
Well,
away.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll come back. I'll publish some more stuff, and then we'll
yes.
come back and talk about it. How's
Okay,
that?
yes.
That
Sounds
always
good.
works.
Right. Give us, yep. Okay. Well, thanks again for joining me. And then so again, it's been Ed Greenwood joining Liam. So
Oh,
until
he's
next.
over there. He's
Yes,
over
I don't
there.
know. It
It's
reverses it
magic.
on me.
Whoa.
Yes, magic. You're familiar with it. So, but until next time.